You set foot on foreign soil. Only this land isn't ruled by any country or government. In this land we celebrate music. In this land we celebrate games. In this land we celebrate those who compose video game music. Welcome to the VG Embassy. Welcome back, and thank you for tuning in to another episode of the VG Embassy. This is a show centered around video game music and the amazing online community of fans and podcasters that enjoy it. My name's Ed, and on each episode I'll take the role of Prime VGM Minister and invite a guest VG Ambassador onto the show to share with us their own video game music culture. Or I may share a part of my culture on a solo show. Today's episode is Blind Listen 3. Gaiapolis, and this is a Patreon reward show for Carlos, otherwise known as Kung Fu Carlito, and his request for my VG Ambassador today is none other than Keyglyph, Emily herself. Emily, welcome back to the show.
Oh, thank you for having me. This is so sweet that I was invited on.
Yes, I'm not sure why Carlos invited you or wanted you to come on to this show with me.
I think I figured it out.
Yeah.
Looking at that set list, I think we're going to see.
All right, so yeah, there might be some titles here that are have some interesting names, but it might have something to do with the music or the composer or who knows.
Maybe we're going to get to the most amazing boss theme of all time.
Yes, and you will just turn into a boss or fly away.
That's right. I will destroy your house. Sorry, I can't control it necessarily.
That's fine. I could use the insurance money anyway.
Oh, okay, great. Works out for everyone.
Exactly. So today we know nothing about the game that we are talking about. The game is called Gaiapolis, and I remember hearing the name of the game, but I have no mental association with the kind of game it is, what system it's on. I know just from the set list, the file names that Carlos sent us, that the game is a Japanese game because the titles are in Japanese and English on the file names. That's really about it. I mean, did you even hear about this game before I asked you?
I know nothing about it, and I'm very intrigued by the title right off the bat because we've got a combination of Gaia, the spirit of Earth, and then Polis, which is that suffix for city.
Cities, yeah.
So we've got sort
Earth
of
City.
Yeah, so that's interesting. I don't know if this is fantasy or if this is sort of developed fantasy.
Yeah.
I was going to say sci-fi. That's not what I mean. But you know what I mean? I don't know if it's going to be a nature game or if it's going to be a civilization kind of game.
Or a combination of the two.
Right.
Do you have any expectations for the music? Do you think it might be FM, or do you think it might be Redbook, or...
I don't have any expectations. I have a fear that it's going to be one of those in-between systems and we're going to be thrown off and try to figure out what it is. That we're not going to be able to identify it right away.
Yeah.
And that maybe I'll make a fool of myself for a couple tracks until we figure it out.
That's the whole part of the show. I mean, we were kept guessing on the last two blind listens until the very, very end. So I'm not expecting to have 100% grasp on the game by the time we finish up. So for those who haven't listened to blind listen episodes before, in case you haven't gleaned by now, this is a show where a VG Ambassador and I go through a soundtrack of a game that we know nothing about, and as we go through, we listen to the music and we give our thoughts on the music and what we think the music might be trying to convey, and kind of try to piece together what we might think the game would be about. And then when I play the last track of the show, that's when I'll do some research on the web about the type of game it is, who the composers are, kind of pull back the curtains for our last dialogue segment of the show, and kind of let everybody know how close we were to what our initial theories were.
Right.
It's always a lot of fun, and it's great because, you know, I've had people listen to the show, and audience members have always told me that they have a great time guessing along with us. So
yeah, we're all in this
time.
experience together. Do you actually record at the end our reactions as we're looking up the information?
We could do that.
Like oh no, we were so close,
Yeah.
and I can't believe this is Motoi Sakuraba.
Usually it's while we break for the last song that I look it up, but we could possibly do like
Just
a
keep it
first
rolling.
look kind of a deal. That might be fun.
That might be kind of fun. Yeah.
We'll just have to excuse all the mouse clicks from my equipment in front of me.
All the tippity typing.
Yeah. All right. So I say we get on to the first track of the day. So this first track is called Morning Departure. All right. We'll take a listen to it, and we will be right back. All right, we're back. That was Morning Departure from the game Gaiapolis. And so as we started listening to the music, some artwork popped up on my player. So we got a little glimpse of some stuff. We do know it's a Konami game, and we do know there are some people with swords, but we really didn't. We tried not to look at it too much to get too much detail.
Possibly
so.
a woman with bunny ears, something like
Yeah,
that. I got some sort of impression of bunny ears.
Obviously, definitely Japanese, but the artwork that we saw doesn't really give us much information as to what kind. It could have been like a side-scrolling action game. It could be an RPG. It could be a visual novel for all we know. So,
right.
As far as the music goes, what were your initial impressions of what the sound is like?
So immediately I thought, oh, Super Nintendo. And then you were saying, oh, but it sounds richer than Super Nintendo. And I agree. And then I remembered, oh, yeah, systems have come out since the 8-bit and 16-bit era. So maybe it's a DS game or something like that.
See, it didn't sound sequenced at all to me.
Really? See, I was hearing those SNES strings.
Yeah, well, you heard the strings, but I was particularly listening to the percussion. And there were a lot of cymbal crashes that... you really don't hear cymbal crashes like that on a Super Nintendo that much. They sound much more like tinny and thin on an SNES, so I don't know, I thought the percussion was much more richly sampled than the Super Nintendo can really put out.
All right.
But that's my theory. I mean, as we listen to more, we might hear some live instrumentation, or we might listen to some music that is like, oh, okay,
we'll get to a vocal track and we'll be like, oh, all right.
Yeah. So we've definitely ruled out all the 8-bit systems. We've ruled out the Genesis. We've ruled out a lot of the stuff that, can't be done with music like this. But very bombastic, heroic Morning Departure. So, I mean, basically, it sounds like heroes going off on a journey.
Yeah.
I don't know about RPG, because RPG, I think, would sound a little more sweet in a scene called Morning Departure. So maybe more of an action title, or...
Possibly. It sounded very sort of Final Fantasy to me, or at least it reminded me very strongly of Final Fantasy VI. So I could see it being setting off on an adventure, maybe in the overworld. Maybe it's the first overworld tune. But I like what you're saying about it being more action-oriented. And I feel like I'm going to be metagaming this a lot, because I'm interested in, like, why did Carlito pick this? So I keep thinking it can't be that obvious, right? So I'm like, maybe it's a shmup. We'll see. I really feel like it's an RPG at this point, but I feel like maybe that's to throw us off.
It's very possible. Yeah, he did throw a couple titles at me before we settled on this one, but basically because the first couple titles I was already familiar with. But that doesn't really mean anything. It's just a little factoid about the show. So anyways, let's move on to our next track. And the next track is called Down to Earth, which, I don't know, has maybe a little bit of a sci-fi sound to it. Who knows? All right, well, let's give Down to Earth a listen, and we'll be back. That was Down to Earth from the game Gaiapolis, suggested to us by Kung Fu Carlito. Now, so we were...
The tables have turned!
Yes, we were literally just talking, and I'm like, okay, now I think it's more Super Nintendo, Super Famicom, and you're like, no, it can't be Super Nintendo.
Well, okay, I didn't say it like that. I was like, I don't know, I don't think it can be now. So you convinced me on the symbols. Those symbols are very clean, which is very cool. But we were talking about the timpani rolls, and you said that was straight up Super Castlevania.
4
and I was
sounds
saying,
identical.
Yeah, and I was saying that's super A Link to the Past. But I feel like sprinkled in there were these sort of synth sweeps that sounded like they couldn't be possible mixed in with the Super Nintendo unless we were on a system that was beyond the Super Nintendo.
Okay. I mean, yeah.
It didn't sound like sampled synth stuff. It sounded like actually generated.
Technically, it could be like Nintendo DS.
Right.
They're just using the instrument
That's kind of what I'm
from
feeling.
the SNES Konami games.
That's what I'm leaning
weird,
towards. That's what I'm leaning towards. Is maybe it's some kind of we'll just say action RPG. Maybe it's an action RPG that was released for the DS that was supposed to be getting you in those sort of nostalgic feelings.
Okay. Fair enough.
Great track, though.
I'm half with you. Yeah, I really like the track. Feels like a battle theme.
Yes,
to
so
me.
good.
Like very Final Fantasy battle theme style. Again, great percussion. I'm really focusing on those drums and those hefty cymbal crashes.
Yeah.
And very staccato violin stabs. So cool stuff. The next song is called Battle, coincidentally enough. So want to listen to
if the
that
non-battle theme sounded that good,
right?
What's the battle theme going to sound like?
Now we've got to listen to an actual battle and probably get our faces melted off.
This will be the vocal track.
Yeah, right.
It'll be a cappella.
And then we'll be sure that it's not super.
All right.
All right, so we'll be right back after listening to Battle. Battle from Gaiapolis. That really turns things on their noses.
Yeah, I think we both did a very dramatic head tilt when it started. We were like, as soon as that orchestra hit came in, I said, "What?" And you said, "Suddenly we're in the Ninja Turtles," and it's true. That's exactly what I thought of.
So I'm now starting to guess that when we look up these composers, we might find some of the composers that may have worked on those Konami games, either like Ninja Turtles or Sunset Riders, or
absolutely.
Potentially Super Castlevania 4, Taro Kudo, something like that. So, yeah, this was a great track because it's like Turtles in Time, but if the Turtles in Time, they went to like an RPG era, like medieval.
Right,
battle
yeah.
You know, something very dramatic and open. I don't know, still thinking it's not SNES or Super Famicom, though?
I'm sort of feeling like it can't be. There's some string sort of slides and rips in there that I feel like if we're thinking about the Super Nintendo being all sampled stuff, there's some long samples in there, and I just kind of feel like technically it would surprise me to have all that stuff possible without hearing that sort of clip that you hear with the Super Nintendo sometimes with the samples, or at least I do.
It's like a little like vibrato, almost like
or like just I try to explain this to people, and it's
you can kind of hear with the sample loops is what you're trying to say, because that's kind of what
it's
I hear.
more like if you compare sewer surfing for the Super Nintendo versus the Sega Genesis, I hear the clips of the samples in the Super Nintendo, like I hear the hard cutoff, and so there were a lot of really smooth slides in this that could be one long sample, but it just didn't feel like one. It just felt too clear and clean. So I'm thinking I'm probably going to put my money on DS at this point.
Okay.
What about you?
Fair enough. I'm still leaning towards SNES.
Yeah.
And also, you know, the fact that we saw the Konami logo when the artwork came up, I think would be a moot point by like track 2 or 3 already, because I think we've pretty much determined that it's definitely a Konami game. There are very few other companies this could possibly be.
Right.
You know, it literally is that trademark Konami sound. So
actually, it's LJN. Surprise.
I would eat my hat that I'm not
Maybe
wearing.
Carlos gave us fake artwork.
It's true, he could have. So let's get on to our next piece of music, and this one is called Symbol of the Hero. I'm expecting some very heroic and uplifting music from this track. What do you think?
I think yes.
Yeah. All right, so let's get into it. That was Symbol of the Hero. God, what an epic song.
Yeah, I know.
I was wondering if it would ever end.
I was on the edge of my seat for 5 whole minutes.
Listening.
So listeners, we did look through the track list ahead of time to try to skip over jingles, but that one stayed in, and Ed was like, should we keep it in? And I'm like, keep it in, it's funny. It's a really cool jingle, and I really like the way it ends with that sort of that cut reverb. I thought that was very interesting and intriguing, so I mean, my vote would be to retain that, because it's cool.
No, I'm totally cool with that. Yeah. And it feels like you've just won the battle, and considering the battle track is right before this one, it would make sense.
Yeah, I was kind of wondering, I was going to ask you what you thought. Like, if you thought maybe Symbol of the Hero is sort of like, to mention A Link to the Past again, every time you beat a boss, you get like the medal or the medallion or something. Right. So maybe you gain Symbols of the... Maybe this is like an Ultima situation where you're kind of trying to like become the greatest knight or become a good person. So you are kind of collecting the symbols of knighthood from each boss, and then maybe you'll kind of ascend to something at the end. Yeah.
Interesting thoughts. To me, it kind of felt like the Final Fantasy battle went da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, you know, very similar to that, which makes me think that this might be more of an RPG. I don't know. So we might get to a particular part where there's like a super boss track, and then there's a similar track, you know, a more regal or epic sounding version of this for like a boss fight that you might win or something. That'll
be cool if we can actually identify leitmotifs going on.
Yeah.
If we can listen deep enough to see recurring themes, that would be excellent.
Yeah, definitely. So the next track we've got coming up might be a little more sinister sounding. It's called Night of Flames. And I can't tell whether that might be somebody that helps you along your way or somebody you might have to fight against.
Right.
So let's take a listen to it, and we will complete our thoughts when we return. All right, Night of Flames from Gaiapolis.
Jam.
Yeah. Again, so I'm feeling like this had more of a sinister feel. Like this is where you're like, enter a room or a dungeon, and there's this knight covered in flames, for lack of better terms. And, you know, he's talking to you and taunting you, and you're gonna end up, you know, trying to fight him or something like that. It feels like one of those kind of evil villain introductory tracks.
Yeah, interesting. So the image I got from it was kind of like, I'm thinking about the title being more, I guess, figurative, and what was happening in my mind was your character going through some sort of city or building that is burning, and there's some other NPC that comes to help you and dies in the process, and he's the Knight of the Flames.
Oh, you're getting really specific here.
I know, I don't know why. I just felt like that. I just felt, you know, because if we're thinking RPG, so often there are those NPCs that show up basically just to kick the bucket, you know?
Right.
To give you that emotional kick in the gut. So I felt it was definitely bombastic and definitely, I don't want to say sinister exactly, but you know, there's an anxiety to it, but I felt like there was a determination as well. So I didn't feel threatened by it, by an enemy force necessarily. It felt more like a bad situation to be in.
Okay, but not precluding a fight, essentially.
Right,
but
yeah.
just like, oh, that sucks. Now this is going to make our journey more difficult.
Right. Or like, you know, oh, get out of the building in X amount of time. Maybe there's a timer going down.
Right. I feel that. Sound-wise, very cool. I like the slower tempo, and then really cool use of those synth orchestra hits. But you mentioned there's this low kind of bass tone that sounds very synthy.
Yeah, it kind of stands apart, this little doo-doom. It's something that you sort of feel more than you hear a little bit than the rest of it.
It kind of comes like it's a backing instrument to those timpani drums, like dun-dun, and it goes dun-dun underneath it, something like that. But very cool with the sleigh bell, and then the violins.
I love
really,
a sleigh bell that's used in a non-ice situation.
Yes.
I really appreciate that.
It gets so cliched in snow music.
Yeah, not that I don't love it there too, but whenever it shows up elsewhere, I'm like, oh, interesting. It does good things to my brain.
Yes, I totally agree with you there.
I cut you off though. You were saying something else.
No, I just really love the pace of this song, and I really like how there are a lot of disparate instruments here that you normally don't hear together, and they all fit together very well in this track. So
I agree.
I feel like these composers, you know, this wasn't their freshman attempt at writing video game music. So let's move on to our next one. The next one, I have no idea what to make of this one. It's called Neomosk, Neomosk. So let's put our drums on that one, and we'll be right back. right, holy cow, that was Neomosk from the game Gaiapolis.
Ah, wow.
Yeah, this was incredible.
What a track.
You can start. You're probably better at vocalizing your feelings.
Although
maybe. I think you kind of got broken halfway through
this
track.
This song sort of went into my soul for a little while and piloted me, I suppose. So I got sort of chills in the beginning right off the bat, actual shudder chill. And then it just kept getting better and better, and I actually covered my face because I was afraid that like maybe I'd cry or I would make like a weird expression because I was just so connected with this. When I hear tracks like this, orchestral tracks that I think really move me, all I can think about is what it would have felt like to actually play that in an orchestra. Obviously, this isn't an actual orchestra, but that's just where I go in my mind, is just like, what would that be like to be playing with a full ensemble of people and feel that sort of that magic moment where everything's coming together and you just get swept up by the music, even though you're playing it. I might be crying on my clarinet. I don't know. But wow, just what a track. This, wow. So good.
No, fantastic pace. It just feels so rich. With those little like twinkly, they were synthy sounding,
it's like
but they
shooting
fit really
synthy
well.
stars, yeah.
And then that build up towards the end, just before the loop, is just like perfectly paced, and it just comes right back into the song again, and it just makes you want to listen to the whole thing all over again. So,
which we did.
Yeah, which we did. We listened to it twice, and we enjoyed it just as much the second time as the first time. So, holy cow.
Incredibly well composed. The rhythms were changing in the different sections, and there were distinct sections, and it just carried you through the whole way. Oh, it really is one of those tracks where when it starts again, you feel like you don't feel like you're starting back at the beginning of a song. You feel like you've gained momentum and you're going back into it with kind of like more energy, and it's just going to keep sort of ramping.
Yes, you kind of now you know what to expect, so now you understand that the song is building towards something instead of just on its flat journey or something like that. All right, so holy cow, next.
Oh wait, what do you think Neomosk means?
Oh, I don't know. I was thinking maybe it's like an actual mosque, like MOSQUE, but just Japanese
spelling. I also had that thought because I'm thinking, so I felt like I was flying through clouds while I was listening to that track as well. It just had a very kind of a wind feel to it, a certain kind of wind feel. And so Neomosk kind of combined with down to earth was sort of making me think, I was thinking of a mosque in the clouds, like a floating city of some kind.
Maybe, yep.
So I'm wondering if maybe the story has something to do with earth versus some kind of civilization in the clouds somehow. I don't know how.
Right.
I don't really get the sense that they're at war necessarily. I like how much I'm already reading into it. Like I already decided, okay, this is fact. We've got the two factions, but I just feel like maybe that's going to be, and looking forward to some of these titles, maybe this seems to be an ongoing theme of flight.
Yeah.
Perhaps.
And I was also kind of noticing that I'm seeing some similarities to like the ActRaiser soundtrack in places, to very grand orchestral scores, a lot of kind of like Yuzo Koshiro influences. And ActRaiser, of course, is also about a civilization in the clouds helping out a civilization on Earth. So maybe there's some sort of parallel or subconscious influence.
Maybe there's some shades of Terranigma in here as well.
Yeah.
Which is about restoring a planet.
Exactly. So I want to hear more. So let's listen to the next track, Take Back My Daughter, which could mean many different things. Maybe we'll be able to glean more information from that once we hear the music. And that was Take Back My Daughter from Gaiapolis on some sort of Nintendo system.
By some sort of composer.
It's definitely Nintendo. I think we can at least narrow it down to Nintendo. It could also be Saturn.
Oh, good point.
Because that had some sample-based sound chipery, too.
Yeah, that's that's my console blind spot right over there. So yeah, that's interesting.
Because that might explain a Super Nintendo sound, but a little more oomphy, But
yeah, absolutely.
Didn't really have too much of a presence on the Saturn Konami, so I don't know. It's possible. But I'm still leaning towards Super Famicom, Super Nintendo.
Okay, I'm still leaning towards Nintendo DS.
Yeah. So either way, I mean, they're both systems that have very similar sound capabilities as far as, sample-based channels go
absolutely.
And such.
Our old friend, the Sleigh Bell, is back.
Sleigh Bell's back. Sammy the Sleigh Bell will be our
Sammy the Sleigh Bell. I was actually thinking about the Sleigh Bell a little bit while listening to this track, because I do feel like maybe in Japanese games it shows up to kind of signify sort of like Roma culture, because this had a Middle Eastern feel, and I feel like in Harvest Moon sometimes the sleigh bell shows up in summer tracks. There's a track for each season sometimes in those games,
right? Because like Secret of Mana, you hear it sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. So I think maybe they're thinking, I don't know the name of the symbols that you hold in your fingers, or if they're thinking about I don't know, just like maybe lots of bangles or something like that on a person's garments or their wrists. But I really enjoyed that this went Middle Eastern. Very cool.
Yeah.
We're getting a lot of different soundscapes and styles here.
I envisioned a tavern.
Oh, all right.
Maybe at night. This is like, the end of a scene before your party goes to rest and something happens in the middle of the night. It's got that very kind of calm before the storm feeling. I know in going in order with this soundtrack, it feels like, there was some intense, crazy stuff going on, and now you've overcome it, and maybe you're in the middle of your journey, but now you find this nice little town that's safe from whatever the oppressors are, or whatever you're fighting against, and this is your moment where some characters talk to each other and maybe expound on their backstory a little bit before they
I can
rest.
Absolutely see that being the sort of checking in scene with everyone.
Yeah.
Or are you feeling like it was a self-directed scene, or are you thinking you're in a tavern and you go up to everybody and you press A?
Could really be either, but I was leaning more towards a
that's what I'm thinking too.
Style. Yeah.
Oh, I was thinking walking up to everybody.
Okay.
Not that it really matters. I just think that that's funny.
Yeah, sometimes with cutscenes you get more of a cinematic piece where it has like a cold end.
Yeah.
And when the song loops, generally that means maybe because you are controlling the character and it needs to be able to take its time and continue until you're, the player is done with that scene. So maybe you're more on the money there. Or maybe neither one of us are, for all we know. So next track coming up is, you think, perhaps the reason why Carlos wanted you to...
I think so, yeah. This next track is called Key City, the city of my peoples.
Yeah.
So...
lots of tea there. Lots of tea shops.
Lots of tea. Lots of sweaters and hoodies.
A library on every corner.
A library on every corner. Lots of books. There's a Sega Genesis in every household.
Sweet.
So, yeah, and everybody, thermostats don't go below 75 degrees.
Oh, sounds like paradise to me. All right, well, let's take a listen to Key City.
All right, that was Key City from Gaiapolis. I forgot to mention that everyone in Key City is a dark magician as well.
A necromancer or what have you.
Yeah, sorcerers, warlocks, etc. So, yeah, I feel like, Carlos, I feel like this has to be why you asked to have me on, because it's called Key City. It feels like a boss track. There's a random time signature change towards the end. We go from 4/4 to 5/4. Yeah, that's interesting that the Cosmos created this thing with Key. It's my land of my peoples, and then it sounds like that. It
also,
has
it's
all these
all
things
one word too.
Yeah,
it's like Keyglyph, Key City. So
yeah,
it's like Key City.
Key City.
So yeah, this is crazy. I love that build up right before the loop. It gets super intense. You just think it's gonna like explode. There's gonna be like white noise everywhere, and then drop back into the song again, but it loops so well. That's not even like at the loop point either. There's this little, really low and quiet part right after that big build-up.
Yes, that was so good. Yeah. There are these French horns that came through that sounded gorgeous. Yeah.
Until the actual loop comes in. So really, really nicely done there. I don't know. So this track being named after a city, like it doesn't jive with me. Like they don't.
Something has gone wrong here.
Right. Something very, very intense, and there's some danger going on. So maybe we were talking about that. We didn't really talk about the significance of the last track being named Take Back My Daughter.
Right.
Maybe you're listening to this and during that tavern scene or whatever it is, somebody gets kidnapped.
Right.
And this is like the chase scene trying to get back.
Oh yeah, possibly.
Daughter or something like that.
Yeah, I think Take Back My Daughter is this is obviously some kind of straight translation that is missing a connotation that we need to kind of understand what the situation is. It's not like get my daughter back or give back my daughter. It's just take back my daughter. So yes, I agree with you. I think that I would guess that take back my daughter is supposed to mean rescue my daughter.
That's what I'm thinking too.
Right, and that we've somehow gotten into a situation here where we are involved in that. I like that you said that it was that Key City was really it built a lot but didn't explode, because I thought boss, but now that you said that, I also think that maybe this was more akin to the earlier track when I was talking about a burning house and trying to escape. This does sound like either a chase or an escape or some kind of stressful situation with a timer or something.
Yeah, no,
a race against time as opposed to fighting an opponent.
Definitely that sense of urgency in here.
Something has gone wrong in Key City. When you get that many necromancers together and they pool all of that magic, sometimes things get a little out of hand. So, we apologize. That'd be great if in the game you show up to Key City and we're like, we're trying to contain it. We're doing everything that we can. We're trying really hard. But if you're a hero and you want to help, like, fine, here's a scythe. Go for it.
We're trying to distract all of this undead with all these Genesis units, but some of them are just not good gamers.
Thank you. We appreciate it. Try to keep up.
God. Just getting their necrotic flesh all over the books in every single library, so this is not working out.
We just have to discard those. It's very sad.
Yeah. Hopefully
maybe we've learned how to necromance books. Recycling.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
We'll make the trays that you take out your fast food with out of reused books.
Yeah, we're very
eco-friendly.
Exactly, thank you. We're very conscious of these things in Key City.
So let's move out of Key City, and I think this is a bad Japanese translation, but it's called Olympia. I think it's Olympia, but they've mixed the N with the M.
Yep.
So let's listen to Olympia, and we shall return. All right, you just heard Olympia from Gaiapolis, requested by Kung Fu Carlito, our Patreon reward member of the day. And definitely not a battle track. There's a lot less sense of urgency in this one.
Absolutely.
Emily, what'd you think?
This is some kind of shelter town. So
yeah, or like a fairy fountain, like some sort of oasis in a forest or something like that.
Yes. So I'm still hearing it. I'm still swaying to it. And that's something that I've really appreciated about all this music is that it's been so, I don't want to say catchy. I feel like that's sort of kind of that's not as serious a word as I want, but the music is staying with me even after we stop, which doesn't always happen. And it's been happening on almost every track. So they're very memorable and they're doing something in my synapses. So I think that's very special. Basically, it's just everything has been so well composed and so different too that everything is very unique and very. I'm losing words.
Well, I haven't heard any motifs like you were talking about.
Right.
And there is a lot of repetition in these songs, but because the instrumentation and the melodies are so well crafted,
yes,
the repetition doesn't sound monotonous.
Yeah.
And the repetitive parts are, what's the best way to put this? The repetitive parts blend into each other very nicely, and they're modified very slightly each time. So there's a lot of kind of almost mutation throughout the entire track. That sounds like an ugly word, but
it's a beautiful word.
Yeah.
Mutation's a beautiful word. And yes, and so I feel like when we go back to listen to these, which I will be doing, thank you, Carlos. These are excellent tracks. I feel like I'm going to discover something new.
Right, yeah.
Many, many times listening through.
Right.
So yeah, I would agree that this is probably a shelter town. If we're going with Olympia and we're thinking about Mount Olympus, maybe there are gods involved in this.
Perhaps.
Mount Olympus being where the gods live. Mortals cannot step on that place, so I'd be interested if, there are a lot of times in anime and Japanese video games, they kind of they take ideas from Western sort of mythological culture and sort of mash it together. So I don't know that it would necessarily be consistent. I don't think we'd be drilling down to the level of, mortals cannot step on Mount Olympus.
Right.
But it would be interesting to see if there are gods involved in some way and what that means for the character and what that means for maybe falling down to earth. Maybe this is a god character or a demigod who's fallen out of favor, or something's happened. Maybe they've been stolen.
Yeah, or a demigod that is helping our heroes.
Yes,
and that's why you get this more of a calm atmosphere, because he's like the wise one that you are consulting in order to get further on in your quest, something like that.
I'm thinking gods are probably involved.
Yeah.
And again, we went back to the conversation about what console this is on, and you had said you thought possibly Saturn.
Possibly. I'm still leaning Super Famicom, Super Nintendo, but
I really, we were talking about this during the track, but I would not be surprised. I'm still going to stay with DS, but I really would not be surprised if this turned out to be a disc-based thing like TurboGrafx CD or Saturn from that era, because it really does, those samples are they were so prevalent then. Right. So unless this is a modern game that was deliberately trying to harken back to that time, I feel like it would be just very like smack in the 90s, mid to late.
It would be really interesting to see like a TurboGrafx or a PC Engine CD soundtrack that has what I consider to be like quintessentially Nintendo sounds. Yeah. Seeing those graphics combined with that music on the screen simultaneously would probably break my brain a little bit, I think. It would feel like it was a custom soundtrack that didn't belong in the game or something like that. But
you'd have to recover. We'd have to like fan you and get some smelling salts,
All right, so we are about halfway through our track list at this point. Let's move on to our next one, Maharish. Maharish, however you might pronounce it. We will be right back. Well, that certainly turned things on its ear. That was Maharish, however you might pronounce it, from the game Gaiapolis. So I don't really know if those vocal samples of that length and clarity are possible on a Super Famicom, Super Nintendo system.
No,
so
I think we shared a raised eyebrows moment over that. So
yeah, and like I said at the beginning, those cymbal crashes and a lot of that percussion kind of were strikes against why I thought it might be, but I was kind of still leaning into it. Now I have no freaking clue.
I'm almost feeling like maybe it'll be a TurboGrafx CD. I just sort of feel like maybe that will be the kind of unexpected end. Oh my gosh, what a jam, though. I'm going to be listening to this for basically the rest of the weekend. What a jam.
The bass line totally just hooked me.
So good. So good. And I like that we are definitely geographically in the Middle East for multiple tracks now.
Yeah.
This is our second track. So that kind of sort of aesthetic is going to be incorporated into the game in a heavy way. Super, super cool.
Yeah, so this might be kind of a world-traveling kind of game. Maybe you end up with an airship or go through portals or who knows how, but you're on Olympia, you're in the Middle East, there's other stuff coming up that
maybe it's like a mashup of like Egyptian mythology and Greek mythology.
Okay,
that might be cool.
Maybe.
I'm just writing the games that I want to play.
Maybe you're really chasing your daughter around the entire globe and trying to figure out why she was taken.
It'd be cool to see where else we go.
But this was like Middle East, like rock almost.
Yeah.
Very intense, maybe boss battle style track. Definitely not wandering around a desert, looking for random enemies kind of a song at all. There's some significant kind of danger that you're in while this track plays.
Yeah, and sort of speaking of that, now that we've had so many sustained high energy tracks with some kind of anxiety to them, I'm feeling like this isn't an RPG at all. I'm thinking maybe this is a shmup, honestly.
Really?
Yeah, I'm thinking maybe these are shmup level tracks.
Interesting.
So
see, that's what I initially thought when Carlos suggested the soundtrack to me, but I was thinking of Gaiares, however you pronounce it.
Yeah, right, yeah.
I get the Gaia part mixed up, and that's what I thought the game was. So I immediately thought shmup, but then I was like, oh no, but Gaiapolis might be anything. So
right.
But I don't know. I'm saying there's a possibility it might be a shmup, but I'm not. I'm thinking with a Take Back My Daughter, those tracks don't really belong in a shmup.
Right.
So unless it has shoot 'em up elements and
maybe it has cutscenes
or some sort of
are there hybrid RPG shmups?
Sure, why not?
All right.
Somebody can do it, why not?
Yeah. I love that we are halfway through the tracks and we have these many paths to follow in possibilities.
Yeah. There is that one WayForward developed DS game that is a hybrid shmup RPG, which is a relatively recent game that came out. I don't remember the name of it, but so it's been done before. And was that other Defender? Something. There's an NES game that was multiple genres as well, which is like a platformer / shmup. So it's been done before. So there's no reason this couldn't be a game in that vein too. So what we're trying to say is we still have no clue.
Right.
So let's move on to our next one.
I love this mystery. Oh wait, before we move on,
sure.
Just in case people don't know, to go back to Key City real quick, there is a running joke that I'm a necromancer from my old podcast with Josh Adachi, the VGM Jukebox. Just want to throw that out there in case anyone's listening and what? This woman is very strange.
Yes, and so this pervades into her real life too. So
yes, I've kind of embraced it.
Jokes at her constantly.
Yes.
And she makes it about herself, so it's not like we're making fun of her or anything.
Right, exactly. And it's no longer a joke now.
It's just real powers.
Exactly.
So, I actually died this morning, so
I know.
Here I am.
You died from this finding out that this was actually going to be sort of like a Nintendo game on a Sega system.
Right.
And I brought you back.
As soon as we heard those vocal samples, just keeled right over.
Yes, and then I wiped our memories so that we could do this again.
Excellent. And,
you're going to find other files on your computer. Did we already record this?
I don't remember this at all.
How did this happen?
Is this audio of me dying?
Oh, God, that's horrible.
All right, let's move on to our next one before we go any further off the rails. This one is called Stone of the Winged Man. Interesting. Mm-hmm. All right, let's take a listen. We just listened to Stone of the Winged Man from Gaiapolis for Random System by unknown composer as of yet. I'm throwing my hat in the ring for PlayStation as well.
Really?
Well, it has sequenced music.
Yeah.
Like Final Fantasy.
I mean, really, not that makes sense. I'm just like, really? We're just throwing all the systems in now.
Basically, yeah. Well, I mean, we've definitely ruled systems out.
Yes.
So I'm thinking really high-end sequenced sound chips like Saturn, like PlayStation, or Red Book Audio, like basically anything from Sega CD, TurboGrafx CD, up to modern systems, any of them. I mean, this has a very 90s feel, so really I'm assuming that it's going to be an early disc-based system if it's not like a 32-bit style sequenced music soundtrack.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm trying to mix the name Stone of the Winged Man with a track that's this pretty sounding, and it's hard to figure out why it would be called that. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah. Interesting, because I would have expected. So I was thinking when I looked at the title Stone of the Winged Man, I was imagining our heroes arriving at some sort of statue and maybe getting a message from it.
Or stone.
Yeah. But this, it has so much movement to it that it feels like there's more going on, which I think is what you're getting at. So I don't know. It doesn't feel like we've arrived at a location for a static scene to occur. So I don't know why it's called. I can't really put it together, except that we've got the Wings theme going on. Maybe that factors into angels and gods in some way.
Falling to Earth, Winged Man. Yeah.
Right.
Olympia. Maybe it's a winged guy that has like a kidney stone and he needs medicine and you go on a fetch quest.
Right, exactly.
There's a little bit of humor in there somewhere.
That could be it. I do sort of feel like, I don't think this is true, but I just, sometimes I feel like Stone of the Winged Man and Knight of Flames is related because it's sort of like people with titles. They're sort of defined by their titles. The Knight of Flames, the Stone of the Winged Man. So we at least have possibly characters who are semi-legendary, perhaps, and are referred to by their legendary names as opposed to by their given names.
That's a very good point. Or it could be that these were very popular, or not very popular, very powerful individuals that have somehow lost their power and are now trying to gain it back.
Right, true.
Something like that.
Yep.
So,
or maybe it's even a kind of like a reincarnation situation. Like maybe there is always a Knight of the Flames, or maybe something's being passed along. Maybe that's a designation that you get by proving yourself or having it sort of given to you, something like that.
Yeah. Okay, I can definitely see that. I don't think the title of the next track is going to give us any more indication of what we're talking about.
Nope.
It's called Koben, Koben. I don't know if that's a misliteral translation or if it's the name of a town or an individual, but maybe the music will give us some clues, although it's been kind of... we've been running into a lot of tracks that have music that doesn't sound like they're named, which was kind of very similar to the very first blind listen we did with with Black Matrix, where we would have titles that would just completely be different from how the music sounds.
Yep.
That always makes the shows the most fun to guess anyway. So I want to play Coben for you, and we will be right back. All right, we're back. That was Coben from the game Gaiapolis, suggested by Kung Fu Carlito. And my opinions on that were kind of Yeah, I mean, it fulfills a mood for the game. I don't think as a musical piece outside of VGM, it's that listenable. You know what I mean? What do you think?
I think it's definitely sustaining something, so I get you with this sustaining the mood. It's funny that you say that it kind of was meh for you, because while we were listening to this track, I was thinking, I was going to ask you if you enjoy playing video games with soundtracks that distract you while you're playing it for the first time, because I was thinking if I played a game that had this track in it, I would have a hard time concentrating. I would love that, but the music is so forward. Do you know what I mean? It's such a very powerful part of this experience. It doesn't just sort of fade into the background. I just can't imagine playing this game and not being aware of the music at all times.
I don't think music in video games ever distracts me. I think it more enhances it.
Yep.
Unless it was really bad.
Okay, then you get distracted.
Bad music would be distracted. But good music, even if it doesn't necessarily fit what I'm seeing on screen, I think still enhances my enjoyment of it.
Okay. My attention can get divided, and I'll be listening to the track instead of playing the game, and then I'll, sort of mess up, or I'll forget what I'm doing.
The only thing that will distract me, I would say, is if there were vocals during the music, and the vocals were not what I was reading on the screen. Like I was trying to listen to people singing while reading different dialogue.
Yeah.
It's not done very much, but when it is done, I'm like, oh, what? I can't do one and listen to the other at the same time.
Right, exactly, yeah.
But yeah, for this one, I don't know. I got a staircase feel, like you're going up stairs in a tower, like a spiral staircase kind of a feel. Just on your way to, like the end of Super Castlevania 4 when you're on your way to Dracula. It just has that kind of like dun 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 dun,
yep.
like very pageantry.
Are you imagining that 3D spiraling staircase effect that was in some games that was very impressive?
Oh, like Battletoads and stuff?
Yeah, or like Mickey Mania did that. Yeah.
Kind of similar to that, yeah. But I was thinking more simple, just stairs back and forth, like kind of cross hatch.
Are you platforming?
Up the screen.
You jumping over falling rocks?
No, it's an RPG.
Okay, yeah. You're just making your way up.
Right, exactly.
Cool.
Any other thoughts before we move on?
I felt like I had a thought, but I'm not sure if I have a thought.
There it goes.
I know, I'm distracted by the music again.
Out the window.
No, I'm just thinking about how how music in video games never takes me out of the experience, but that I just, for whatever reason, I will use whatever processes in my brain are supposed to be going to my motor functions to start listening to music. And with this one, my hope would be that when this track came up in the game, that I would be on some kind of screen where I could just wait and listen for a little while. You know, some kind of menu screen or some kind of selection or something, so that I would have time, because otherwise I feel like I would, I really feel drawn in by this OST, I think is what I'm trying to say.
Right, no, I
it's
totally
just
agree.
There's nothing that's just filler.
Except for this one, for me.
For you.
Personally.
Yeah.
But I feel like even if this was a game that I didn't necessarily enjoy that genre, the music would help keep my attention longer and maybe get me more interested in the game.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just through that extra experience and listening to it. So, speaking of going up towers and such.
Oh yeah, look at that.
Our next track is called Ladder. So let's climb the ladder and we'll be back. Alright, that was Ladder from Gaiapolis for an unknown system, although Emily seems to be...
I just had a sudden thought.
Yeah.
What if this is an arcade game? Do you think so? Possibly?
That's like the last thing I would think.
Really? Now why?
To tell you the truth. Just because this music doesn't... arcade music is generally always high energy, always kind of in your face.
Yeah.
I don't know, some of these songs just feel like areas that you would stick around in for a while, and arcade manufacturers want you to constantly keep moving and pumping quarters into it. So that's the only reason that I would say no.
Yeah, no, but that's right. And I haven't been thinking about it that way because I didn't spend a whole lot of time in arcade. So I was just thinking from a technical standpoint, what else could possibly be blending these sounds together. That said, I would really like to see a more laid back RPG arcade experience. Like, wouldn't that be great? If you were hanging out with your buddies and you're playing some sort of, what if it is an RPG shmup mashup and you do the shmup stuff and then everyone's like, I really want to go get fries right now. You know, there's no way to pause, but we're just on the cutscene right now. We're just on the walking around the tavern and talking to characters part. So yeah, just go get your drink and get your fries and come back.
Interesting. That would be like a much more like Starbucks has an arcade kind of a deal. Where they kind of invite you to chill out and spend some time instead of just getting your hamburger and running out the doors.
Right, exactly. Yeah, encouraging you to stay a while. There have to be some cushy chairs.
Yeah. So there are a lot of tracks in here that I'm like, okay, this could be done on a Super Nintendo easily. It's probably chip-based, not CD. And then tracks like this come in.
Yeah.
Where I'm like, no, I don't know of any in-chip-based sequencer that can create drums like this.
Or that vocal sample.
Yeah, so I'm like, if there were a Super NES CD unit, like if that had actually entered production, I think this would be a soundtrack that would definitely be possible because it's got those elements of SNES and CD sound that would work together. And I know that there were a lot of like TurboGrafx CD games that had Redbook audio, but also had chip-based music in there as well. This almost feels like SNES / Redbook audio, so I'm completely in the dark, and I don't know why.
Ed is freaking out right now.
I'm not freaking out. I'm really trying to understand where we're coming from, and I know like by the end of the show when we finally like figure out what it is, I'm going to be like, oh, duh, of course it's that. Why wouldn't it be that? Or I might be really surprised. So,
right.
But this track was amazing. The first thing that hit me was that huge snare. I love big, giant, echoey 80s style snares.
It was so deep in that cave.
Yeah, and then the drum kit switches up when it goes to that more melodic part, and that was a nice little switch. And then it goes back into that kind of 80s synthwave almost sounding part. So I really enjoyed the flip back and forth between the two. Really nice flute samples, just great stuff.
An excellent track. Definitely. Was it everything you expected from something called Ladder?
It was more than I expected, definitely. I mean, there were a few tracks here where I'm like expecting a lot and getting good stuff, but not as much as I was expecting, but this was the reverse of that. So that's my opinion. Anything else you'd like to talk about before we move on to our next one?
No.
All right.
I think I'd just like to clarify that when I say Ed is freaking out, Ed's a very chill dude. So an Ed freak out is just, when we started playing this track, he just puts his head in his hands and he goes, what system could this be? And I think I even put a little bit more oomph to that. But no, he's not like flailing around on the ground. But you can imagine that if you want.
I am really trying to think here. This is really, I'm firing on all cylinders up in my cranium, trying to figure this out. So let's move on to our next one. Aliesta? Sure. Aleista.
Aleista. I guess it depends on if we're going to be saying it the Japanese way or...
Right. You know. So it sounds like a feminine word of some sort. I don't know. Let's take a listen. We'll see if we can glean what it means. That was Aliesta from Gaiapolis on our third blind listen episode of VG Embassy. I really like this track.
Great track.
I do really feel like it is a high energy, but not necessarily dangerous.
Yeah,
track.
we keep using this term sustained energy.
Yeah.
That it's sort of keeping things at a mid to high level, but it's not, things aren't coming apart quite yet.
This feels like you might be in a battle mode, but not battling enemies that are really that much of a threat to you.
Yeah, everything's got this anticipatory feeling. Like everything feels like it's heading towards something else, except for a couple of those like very chill tracks. But there've only been a few of those, and we were talking about that I just feel like we're not getting very clear, like, okay, this is the town theme and this is like the home base theme. We're not getting those tracks that are very clearly necessarily the relaxing bits. It feels like this is definitely more, I'm on board with you thinking this is more action oriented than not.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like maybe Alista might not necessarily be a person's name, but more of a location.
Yeah, it might be a town. Like
I was
Olympia.
thinking more like an action-based, like on your way to somewhere. I think this is too high energy for a town.
Right. Well, we had Key City.
That's true.
And Key City was sort of a situation.
That's true.
Sorry, everybody.
Yeah, there's a lot of...
We're still working
Maybe
on it.
there are lots of towns with situations in them. I don't know.
Please donate to our town coffers, please.
Yeah, to chase away all these monsters.
But you're right, though. It does not sound like it would be a town theme.
Right. I feel like you're just traveling through like a wilderness of some sort on your way to your destination, whatever that may be.
Right.
So,
I would like to think that maybe Alista, or Alista. I'll say Alista. I'd like to think that Alista is maybe this captured daughter who actually has turned out to be a soldier in her own right, and then she joins your party.
Oh, maybe.
Maybe 3/4 the way through.
Maybe.
I would like that sort of twist.
That'd be kind of cool.
Can I also revisit this idea of the RPG barcade, please?
Yes.
Okay, so just stay with me on this one. All right, we all go to arcades that have 4-player arcade cabinets, and everybody gets really into choosing their color or choosing their turtle, that kind of thing. What if it were a thing that you went to a barcade that had an action RPG cabinet in it, and everybody went with some kind of indication of what RPG character class they are? So, like, you'd have the people who show up who are the tanks, and the people who show up who are the magic users. And so it's an event where you go on, like, Friday or Saturday night, and you have to create your party of 4 and balance all the different, classes.
Kind of like Gauntlet Legends, but more in depth.
And then go play the game.
Yeah.
Like, what if that were an ongoing thing that people did? Would you guys go to that arcade?
I would, as long as it wasn't too in depth.
Right.
Yeah.
Or there were seats with the arcade
Well,
cabinets.
yeah. I mean, seats and maybe like, a swivel chair that you can swivel to like a tray full of like burgers and fries or something like,
Yeah.
It would need to be like a meal / drinking thing / video game playing thing.
Have to build in the ability to get away.
But I also feel like you could do that with a home console and not necessarily need to do it with a huge arcade cabinet.
This is true, but I like thinking about that as becoming kind of like a social, cultural
where you can only play this
thing.
game in an arcade situation.
Yeah. Yeah. Or that it just becomes a thing that people go and do, even if they can do it at home.
Like the arcades of old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just think that's really funny. I just like the idea of people going to a bar on a Friday night with like a Viking helmet on.
Oh, you're getting that into it.
Because
okay.
they're the tank.
Almost like LARPing their
Yeah,
video
yeah,
game.
exactly.
Yeah.
Or wearing a cloak or something, and then having to meet new people to balance out your team.
I see.
And then playing together, and then LARPing, arcade, RPG. Yes.
Right.
Exactly.
And then there's always that real, like, unmotivated one that just has, like, a sign around his neck that says barbarian.
Yeah,
He's
yeah.
Like, dressed in Converse and sweatpants.
Yeah, maybe there's like somebody who doesn't really want to play, but they want to be involved, so that they like give extra tokens to people so they can keep feeding the machine. Although I don't know if these would be token feeders. I feel like that wouldn't necessarily.
I feel like it would be
fair.
more like you would pay by the hour or something.
Yeah, maybe.
You'd go to the shopkeep and hand them, an amount of money.
I like that you said shopkeep.
Yes.
Because the bar itself obviously would be themed like that.
Of course.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I imagined a big, heavy-set, bald guy with a mustache with a rag.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Brilliant.
All right, so speaking of journeys and maybe going from place to place.
And speaking of nothing aesthetically like what we've been talking about.
Yeah, the next track is called Highway, so I feel like this might sound like a track that is a journey, although who knows with the soundtrack. We've been surprised quite a bit, so...
I'm wondering if this is going to be ultra techno.
Oh, maybe. Or very, very laid back, and we'll be like, Highway, what is going on?
Yeah.
So let's take a listen to it, and we'll be back. All right, that was Highway from Gaiapolis.
Did you feel the wind in your hair?
I felt like I was like driving down the highway.
Yeah, there's definitely vehicle feels going on.
Right, but maybe being chased by something at the same time.
Yep.
Love the bass line, and it's kind of like in the higher register, so it's easy to hear.
Yep. I liked the twinklies. The twinklies made me picture when you're driving through a tunnel really fast and all the lights are going by. So it's like so that's what I was thinking about.
Yeah, and I wonder if it's the traditional style highway of the modern times that we know of, or whether it's just like a trail through the woods that, highways used to be.
Right,
like
highwaymen
would rob.
Oh, interesting. Oh, that's cool. Oh, that's a very cool. All the gaslit lamps going by. No, that's very cool.
That would be cool. Yeah.
Wow, that kind of completely changes the way my brain was going. That's a really cool idea. It's like Sunset Riders suddenly.
Yeah, exactly. That kind of
like a train heist kind of thing.
But that also kind of, because I was thinking more like a medieval,
right? Yeah.
Kind of time period, but highway might lead me not towards like modern times, but towards an era where there are like covered wagons and stuff like Old West maybe. So I don't know. The next track though is the title track. It is called Gaiapolis. So maybe this is more indicative of the theme,
right?
And the general arcing.
This is a tune of importance.
Yeah. So let's listen to Gaiapolis. Maybe this is the final location that you're trying to get to.
Yeah, maybe.
Because we are getting towards the end of the soundtrack here. So, maybe this is your final destination. We'll find out. Welcome back. That was Gaiapolis from Gaiapolis by Gaiapolis for Gaiapolis.
Ed, we did it. We made it.
We made it to Gaiapolis.
We made it, and that track is definitely saying, you made it. You are here. You are on the edge of the final battle. That was such a great... I don't know if this is the penultimate stage, but that is a quintessential stage before final stage or stage before final boss track where it's just get ready, dig in, have hope, but be a little bit afraid. You know, enjoy the moment. You're on the cusp of greatness.
The only problem with it is that we read the map wrong. And instead of Gaiapolis, where it's Gaia, it's actually G-U-Y, Gaiapolis.
Oh.
So now it's just sports bars and beer.
Oh.
And
that's not what I expected.
Yeah, so...
Oh, that explains some of the other track titles that we're going to be getting to, like Throwing Darts or Sam Adams.
Or bowling.
Yeah, exactly.
Bowling next Monday evening, something like that. So I'm just kidding. But Gaiapolis, I don't know, for me this felt like it was almost too intense to be walking around any sort of video game area to. It felt like a real like title theme, opening cinematic kind of anime introduction theme. But it loops, and I don't know, I can't imagine like just walking around a town talking to people with like da-da-da, like all over the place. So I'm not sure how this would be used in a video game.
Yeah, I'm really feeling like all of these locales that we seem to be seeing in the titles, these all feel like stages to me. I don't know that we're actually walking around in towns. Like exactly what you're saying. I think we are flying through or running through Gaiapolis and doing action RPG / shmuppy stuff.
That's a good point.
As we're like going through the beautiful landscape and going through all of the buildings and sort of, you know, reveling in the fact that we've arrived. But we're kind of, this is like a storming the castle tune. Like we've got our party assembled, we have all of our stuff, we're going to make the final push. You know, whatever happens, we did it together. We're, you know, that kind of feeling.
Yeah, I can definitely get with you on that one. That sounds better to me than just turn-based walk around and press A kind of an RPG.
Although I would really love to have to do that, to walk around inappropriately scored video game towns, you know, and talk to people. And so you're listening to this and you'll talk to somebody and they'll be like, the old hermit lives beyond the lake. And that's all they say.
Yeah.
Over and over and over again.
It's just this, like, it's got 4 stone buildings in it, and it's the quietest place ever, but you've got this booming orchestral score in the background.
Right. The shop doesn't have its own track. It just continues playing like this.
Or it like turns into, like, a final boss track as soon as you go into the bar or something.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Somebody should score an entire video game appropriately, and then they should just pick from a hat what goes where and see what happens.
That would be excellent.
That's really funny.
I feel like the next track that we're going to get into is going to be extremely dark.
Yes.
Well, because it's called Invasion, King of Darkness.
Invasion tilde King of Darkness.
Right. So I am curious to see what they're going to do with this. I'm anticipating lots of Ninja Turtle orchestral hits.
Oh, yeah, we haven't heard those in a little while,
Yeah, I think they're going to make their triumphant return for the King of Darkness.
Weird time signatures. Here we go.
Yeah, let's find out. All right, folks.
That was Super Shredder.
That was... I predicted orchestra hits, and those orchestra hits are not messing around.
Nope.
They are out for blood.
He nailed it, folks. We're listening to the build-up, listening to that sort of off...
It's like a 30-second build-up.
Yeah, off-key choir, and I'm like, yes, this is a good start. And then when the beat dropped, we both said, yes! It was awesome.
Oh my God, where do I even begin with this? It's got this like kind of like extreme metal quality to it without using any guitars.
Yeah.
Blast beats and all sorts of just craziness going on. Super woke up late, drunk, just made it to the orchestra in time.
The trumpet
horn player.
In the wrong key, dude. Dude, we're in concert. B flat.
He's like, I'm just rolling with it, man. I don't care. I'm retiring in 2 weeks.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny. Yeah, totally. Time signature is all over the place. Lots of movement. Wow, what a track. And what I'm thinking about is this isn't even the final battle track.
It's not even his final form.
Yeah, that's right, exactly. So, and I also think, so we were talking about how we've arrived at Gaiapolis in the previous track, and it feels hopeful and anticipatory and all that. So sometimes in RPGs, you know you're heading towards a goal or you're heading towards a place, and then you get there and it's wrecked. Something awful's happened.
Yep.
And so I feel like in this game this hasn't happened, but I feel like whoever this King of Darkness is has invaded Gaiapolis. I mean, it says invasion, but you know what I mean? That Gaiapolis is some sort of beautiful utopian city.
It just sounds like it's beautiful.
Right,
yeah.
And someone has moved in and is corrupting it. And I feel like maybe this is kind of going hand in hand with hints of nature versus maybe technology themes. Maybe. I can't. The highway thing is throwing me off a little bit. Because I'm feeling like, okay, so maybe this is kind of one of those
but maybe,
tropey JPRG, like we're harnessing the life force of Earth thing.
Maybe Gaiapolis is a floating city in the sky, and highway is literally a highway.
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
it's not necessarily on the ground.
Yeah.
It's the skyway to
It's
Gaiapolis.
the Skyway Highway.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
All right.
I can see that.
Maybe
we needed the Stone of the Winged Man to be able to fly back, because maybe we did fall from Olympia or something.
We fell from Earth, or we fell to Earth, and we have to get back up because the evil king kicked us out.
Something like that.
And we have to travel back through the land and back to Gaiapolis.
Something's going on with
strong
that.
along the way.
Getting strong, getting the ability to fly back. I feel like losing flight is an issue.
Using
here.
a ladder somehow.
Yes. I don't have wings, but I've got this ladder. It's extendable.
Really big ladder.
Yeah, exactly.
It's the most expensive one at Home Depot.
Right, exactly.
I hope it's worth it. Mm-hmm. All right, so we're going to head right into the final battle against what we're assuming is probably a different form of the King of Darkness. Or
maybe it's that lackey who's like, surprise!
Yeah,
it was me all along.
I've been the puppet holder all along. All right, let's final battle it up. You've just completed the final battle.
I mean, maybe. I think maybe we died 80 times.
Well, perhaps. But we rocked out along the entire whole way through it.
Oh, yes, through the podcast.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, God, this track was crazy. It wasn't as crazy as King of Darkness, but this was very intense. Great kind of chord changes there. Just, great stuff. You were really digging the like really high trilled like violins.
Yeah, there was like a synthesized voice that was sustaining notes in the background that was very interesting to me. It's sort of it's not what I expected, and it was great. I do really like when there are sustained notes in the middle of something frenetic, and I feel like this happens in movie scores a lot. Sometimes there'll just be a peal of one trumpet note. I'm thinking about the Men in Black soundtrack right now, the score. Anyway, but I like that contrast for whatever reason. It just feels good. This track is exactly what I want to be feeling when I'm fighting a final boss.
Right, exactly.
You know, I mean, we were talking about being distracted and things. I feel like with a track like this, for whatever reason, I don't get as distracted. It just lends me its energy.
Right, I get matches your
sucked
feeling.
into it. Yeah, and I love that because that topic's come up before with other people about do you like a really intense final boss track, or does that kind of does it psych you out? Does it mess with your ability to play? I couldn't say if it psychs me out or anything like that. I just like it. I like feeling the emotional weight of the situation through the music and knowing, okay, this is going to kick my butt.
Right.
Get ready. Buckle down. Yeah.
I feel like the soundtrack has one of the best uses of orchestra hits in all the Konami games, because I feel like a lot of the other Konami games are kind of overused, or they are the focus. Like, hey, look at this cool sound we do.
Right.
You know, but with this, it just really complements it and blends in with the rest of the atmosphere of the song. And I'm noticing them, but I'm not left kind of concentrating on them so much.
I agree.
So good use of them there. And it might be because this is CD quality audio, or however it is, that there's just more layered around it, and it's not a very large sounding sound in a sea of more thinner sounding instruments. You know what I mean?
Yes.
It just kind of
everything's been equalized.
fits better. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, oh man, great track. I am looking forward to the last couple tracks that we're going to be listening to. So it looks like the next track we've got coming up is what plays after you've defeated the final boss in the final battle. This one is called Epilogue. I'm expecting more pretty sounding, very slow paced track.
Yes.
That's what epilogues usually are. So
maybe something sad too, because
or
we don't.
bittersweet.
Yeah, because who knows what's happened here? Maybe we had to fall to be able to bring this Darkness King down.
Very true. All right, let's take a listen to Epilogue, and we'll return in a bit. that was Epilogue from Gaiapolis.
We did it. Not bittersweet at all.
No, that was very, very closure-y.
Closure-y. Closure-y.
Really couldn't find the word for that one.
Triumphant. Definitely a you've just proven yourself as the knight of whatever track, as opposed to focusing on what you've lost.
And the first cold closing on any track that we've played so far.
That's
Everything
true.
else has been looping.
That is true.
So, pretty interesting there.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what else I could say. It's very orchestral, very... doesn't rely on any sort of the battle tropes that we've heard throughout the rest of the soundtrack. And it just feels like it's a reward for doing a good job.
Yeah, it's not necessarily very reflective, and I don't mean that in a disparaging way, but I mean sometimes when you end RPGs, the music is sort of trying to remind you of all the people that you've met and the things that you've done and the hardships that you've been through, but this is just this is a party track,
right?
In a symphonic sense.
Yeah, I mean it's not the last track of the soundtrack. There's still a couple more to go, so maybe this is just that initial high that you get after beating the final boss.
Maybe it's a Kaizo trap.
Yeah?
Maybe right at the end of this you fall off a cliff.
Boom. And maybe you have wings at this point so you can fly back up again.
Yeah. Yeah, if you picked up that item in the first stage that is really hidden, you're okay, but if you didn't, you got to play the whole thing all over again.
Oh, man, that would be awful.
Yeah.
So the next track is actually called Open the Wings.
Oh, hey. All right.
Yeah, so let's open our wings.
We fell off the cliff
and maybe fly back up? I don't know. So let's open our wings and open our ears to this one. All right, that was Open the Wings from Gaiapolis.
Featuring Leroy Moore of the Dave Matthews Band on saxophone. Visiting us from the beyond, as he is no longer with us. But yeah, holy saxophone solo, Batman.
Not what I was expecting at all.
No, so I think, I feel like this track is probably one of our biggest clues as to when this game was published. Because after listening to that, I sort of threw out my theory that it was something modern. It couldn't be.
No.
I feel like that had to be in the 80s, 90s area. It had to be.
I was always kind of sticking for mid-90s.
Yeah.
Especially with those kind of SNES sound tropes there.
Yep.
So around the time of Super Castlevania 4 and Ninja Turtles, that kind of deal. Doesn't really clue me into what system either, because, well, now I know it's definitely got to be disc-based. Because, a track like that is that's not sequenced at all. So I don't think, PlayStation sequence music or Saturn sequence music, unless it's a song from the disc that was like Red Book audio along with all the other sequence music.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I don't know. I mean, this song isn't really the genre that I appreciate that much. It's a little too, I don't know. I was getting like a TJF sitcom theme song feel,
It does seem kind of at odds with the rest of the soundtrack.
Exactly. So you're thinking maybe like credit roll or something?
That's what I sort of felt about it. I felt like it was credit roll, and we were actually talking about the possibility of there being words to this elsewhere.
Right.
We were talking about how sometimes in video games a track will be in a game without vocals, but then a cassette, back in the day would be released and it would have the words to it included, because I really felt like the melody was it felt like it was supposed to have words.
Yeah.
So I'd be interested to find out if there is actually a version in existence with a vocalist.
Yeah, I was really expecting.
We were waiting for it the whole time.
Right.
We're like,
and female, no,
and no,
and no.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah.
Open the wings. I mean, it's like, it's right there.
You need it. So there's one more track left to play from. This is another long 5-minute track. It's called Crystal Time.
Crystal Time.
Which could be Crystal Time. Maybe you're at the club cracking open a bottle of bubbly. Crapping open some crystals.
Are you going to keep that in?
Yeah, probably. I don't know.
Crapping crystals.
But Crystal Time. So I don't know. Any theories about? But this might be the vocal track. Maybe.
I am intrigued because it does seem like all these tracks have been in chronological order in the game to a certain degree, which is not always the case. So what comes after the credit roll?
More credits? Maybe that wasn't the credit roll.
Maybe it wasn't.
Maybe this is the credit roll.
I guess we're going to find out.
Or there's two songs that play during the credit roll. One fades out, the other one starts up.
Maybe this is like the bonus ending if you collected all the stuff.
Yeah. Well, even if the song isn't to your liking, please stick around till the end, because at the end we are going to reveal all of the information about the game and find out how close we came on our predictions, which our predictions are pretty much all over the place anyway, so...
My prediction is it's a game from a thing from a time.
Yeah, so we'll see which of our predictions came the closest. All right, that was Crystal Time from Gaiapolis. We've gone from Ninja Turtles to Dave Matthews to Blues Traveler.
Yeah, that's so true.
I really felt like it was the introduction to Perfect Strangers theme song when that harmonica came in. Same basic feel as like the last track had, but a little more jazzy and a little more upbeat, I think.
Yeah, a little bit less sitcom-y, I feel. This was more what I was expecting from the epilogue track. I was kind of thinking when we were listening to Crystal Time, like, oh, maybe epilogue is actually the secret karaoke track or something. Maybe there's karaoke mode in this game. So just as a sort of funny thought. But I'm confused by these last two. I'm not really sure because they're both super long.
Yeah.
So I can't put a finger on,
10 minutes worth of credits. That's a lot.
Yeah.
music.
But this was I enjoyed how often instruments got peppered in as we were going through this track. We were commenting on it. It's like, oh, okay, suddenly we've got the harmonica. Suddenly we've got the jazz piano. Suddenly we've got the bongos,
Right.
That was pretty cool. So
I'll say, and this is not to disparage the track, I was disappointed that there weren't like calls back to the music that we've heard throughout, because the music in the game has such a distinct kind of sound.
Right.
And these two tracks really don't visit that sound at all.
Yeah.
So it almost doesn't feel like it's closing the same game out.
You know what it feels like, actually? It feels like when you go see a Disney movie and then at the end they have like the pop version of the song and they've changed some of the lyrics a bit and it's a totally different feel, but that's the radio version.
Suddenly Sting is singing and you're like,
yeah, exactly.
Okay, right, what's going on?
Yeah, so, suddenly we've got like a hip-hop version of, what's that song from Moana? You're Welcome.
Right. Yep.
Which I actually thought was really cool at the end of that movie, but it was such a departure. So yeah, that's kind of what just happened here, I think.
All right. So do you want to pull back the curtain?
Well, hold on. I want to make my prediction.
All right.
So
make your final choice.
I want to say that from track 4 on, I was utterly convinced that this was going to be a 3DS game, that this was going to be something modern that was calling back to the past. But thinking about things like how Konami, I confirmed with you that Konami isn't really putting stuff out right now, and we did see that art. Had we not seen that art, I might have still held to the 3DS theory.
Okay.
But I'm going to say that this is I'm going to just go with a TurboGrafx CD-based system from that time period, but I'm going to say TurboGrafx CD. I think that this is a shmup, and I think that it could even be bullet hell.
Okay.
With maybe some RPG elements.
Wow.
And I'm just going to...
All right, that would be a great game.
I'm going to hold tight to that theory.
I'm going with PlayStation, and I'm also going with action RPG.
Okay.
No shmoot 'em up elements or anything.
No
of that
shmoot 'em
sort.
ups?
No shmoot 'em ups or shoot 'em ups for that matter. No schmooting. And and I'm also going to predict that the composers worked on a lot of those Konami games on the SNES and arcade. Sunset Riders, TMNT,
absolutely,
or Castlevania 4, because they do remind me so much of that stuff. So, excuse the typing while I look up the game's name.
Do you think that that Crystal Time and Epilogue were composed by the same composers, or do you think that was?
I'm thinking probably not.
Okay.
So let's see. Gaiapolis. According to Wikipedia, Gaiapolis is sort of the Golden Hawk. Composers, what? Oh, Arcade?
Okay, hold
Overhead
on.
fantasy action RPG.
Nice.
By Konami, released for the arcades in 1993. Mind blown.
The LARPcade exists.
Mystic Warriors-based hardware.
Gaiapolis can be played by up to 2 players simultaneously. The objective of the game is to fight against every enemy in order to progress until defeating the boss at the end of each stage before time runs out. So that was the sustained tension we were feeling.
Oh my goodness.
The player can choose to play as the prince, the fairy, or the dragon. The prince and the dragon are both swordsmen, while the fairy is a martial artist who wields twin tonfas. Okay, this is awesome.
I am.
Along the way, the player can pick up items such as food to replenish health, weapon and equipment upgrades, blah blah. I'm reading straight from Wikipedia. 8-way joystick for moving the character and action buttons. Wow.
This is crazy. 17 stages, although some of the stages can be skipped depending on the course of action taken by the player.
You so shut down my arcade thought, too.
I did.
You nailed
did.
the action RPG, though, absolutely.
Yeah, I'm just an action RPG in an arcade. Like, it just does not... Okay, man.
So do you think really there were dialogue moments and things, like cooldown moments in this, even though it was an arcade experience? Should we watch some gameplay?
Yeah, we could do that. I just wanted to look at the composers, too, because obviously we need to credit them. So Seiichi Fukami, his name sounds very familiar to me. Let's see what he was responsible for. Okay, so X-Men in 1992, Gradius
Snatcher,
3... Snatcher.
Thundercross.
All right, so a Violent Storm.
Yep.
That's why it sounds familiar, because I did a show on that game.
Oh, there you go.
Pixel Tunes Radio. All right, so that explains a lot of the orchestra hits, etc. Satoko Miyawaki. His name does not really sound familiar. Let's find out what he's responsible for. Fantastic Journey in 94. Hexion. Zezix. Ninja Turtles Tournament Fighters, he had a special thanks.
Special thanks for those orchestra hits.
Yeah, and part of the original arcade staff of Parodius in 1995. So
the previous composer was also, I don't know if we read that, was on the arcade staff of Parodius as well.
Oh, okay. Now that makes sense now. That game also had a lot of like orchestral hits and stuff like that.
Yes. Maybe that kind of, because maybe that informed the sort of shmup feel I was getting. All right, here we go.
Yuji
Takanouchi.
So we're looking at, wow, he's still in the biz, but he started off way back in 89 with Pennant Race 2, Space Manbo, SD Snatcher, Metal Gear Solid 2. So he worked with Seiichi Fukami on the X-Men game, and Mystic Warriors. What else is there that I know of? Sky Gunner, Chain Dive.
I don't know a lot of the retro stuff here. These, I'm assuming that these are arcade games.
Some of them are, yeah. And then Demon Souls, Dark Souls, he did sound design, Dark Souls 2 sound design, and D4 Dark Dreams Don't Die, which was a D1.
Also known as Technouchi.
Right. Yes, and he still does some chiptune stuff too, like NES music and stuff. So
super cool.
Very, very cool. I was very surprised. Let's see if we can listen or watch some video. Maybe get some live reactions
to some of this gameplay.
And we can even also play this on MAME. I'm sure I even have it and have never even loaded it up. Gaiapolis Arcade.
I'm thinking that this is going to look so fun. Oh my gosh, yes. We just watched a little thumbnail preview and there was some giant boss filling up the entire screen. Do you think, it is an action RPG, but do you think it's sort of one of those kind of shmuppy action-y RPGs? I'm wondering. Oh, look, that's sort of, there's a big phoenix-looking bird of Egyptian style.
Yeah, it's a vertical screen.
Because I was thinking it was going to be a mashup of Greek and Egyptian. I wonder what the story is.
So you know what? This is probably chiptune then. It's not Redbook Audio, but then the other music is probably just streamed or something from the... All right, so it's vertical screen. You're walking upward, and it's kind of like a beat 'em up.
Yeah, kind of, yeah.
Man, the music does not fit the graphics. It feels like the music is much more advanced than these graphics are. It's like Super Nintendo style graphics?
Yeah, I would say so, yeah. It's actually a lot slower paced than I had expected.
Me too, yeah.
So on the left, we've got some sort of bar filling up every time you hit an enemy. Oh, you know what? It's your level system. There's a level system here.
Right. You probably have a bar that goes up every time you hit an enemy.
Yeah, and she's gonna get to level 2. What is she doing?
She's in a very awkward stance that she's standing in. It's kind of like hunched over with her legs like
I feel like
straight.
This player sort of fell asleep at the, oh no, maybe they were anticipating this crystal coming out.
I see. Like
hurry up, it says. Yeah, it's beat 'em up in the sense of...
all right, now she's level 2.
It's telling you to hurry up, but there is that time limit. Oh, there's some kind of jump kick.
There's some magic. Now she's on a pirate ship.
Here's the boss.
Oh, this is the Flaming Knight. Yeah.
Oh, hey, and he's a Greek
like a
centurion
gladiator.
looking. You're on perhaps a Viking boat. Meat.
Meat.
Power up.
Very cool. So, yeah, let's see if we can fast forward to a boss.
Yeah, I was going to say, page ahead and let's see, like, the different locales, like, what they look like.
All right, so now we're in a grassy field. And we've got some statues, some of the enemies.
We also have a lackey with a oh, this must be the dragon helping out. Because that dragon's on our side.
Yeah. This is all very cool stuff.
Loved this track. Oh, here's a giant boss.
Big boss, yeah. Like, I'm gonna say it's about half the screen, maybe a third of the screen.
Yeah, third or
maybe
a quarter.
Maybe this is a fiery night. I don't know.
I think this might be. I can't remember.
But I do kind of want to get, like, a little bit more... Big guy with a snake bottom. That sounds weird, but...
And now our companion is a little armadillo. An armored armadillo. Literally.
Yeah. There's some sort of kidnapped maiden behind him.
Oh, get back my daughter.
Get back my daughter. Yep.
Or take back my daughter.
So then I wonder what that,
Oh, you're looking for the smooth, quiet tracks. Oh, here we go. So there is some dialogue.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then this is Take Back My Daughter while they're talking about probably her daughter, and then you go on this mission to get it back from Serpent Man. Very cool. I'm going to have to try this game out. I'm sure it's in MAME.
Can we peek ahead at, like, the final areas?
Yeah, let's take a look.
I'm really kind of curious.
All right, so this is very technological looking.
Oh, giant dragon.
Takes up almost the
so
entire
it is technological looking. Maybe, let's see about, if you can page back a little bit, maybe see about highway and, so I think you might have been right that it was a highway skyway. But there's definitely tech going on.
Yeah, for sure. Put some, like, 3D effects, like a rotating disc in the middle of a big see-through bridge.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Yeah, we got, now we have some isometric stuff going on. Sort of switching around. How interesting. So, hey, Kung Fu Carlito, why'd you pick this one? I would love to know. No, we can't watch the... Oh, you're looking for the, I was gonna say we can't watch the ending, but you're looking for the music.
I'm just kind of skipping through, yeah. I'm not really hearing any live instrumentation, but that might be because maybe it's part of the retail CD, but it's not.
Maybe, yeah.
Like, I definitely hear the epilogue track, but who knows?
Yeah, there's appears to be some kind of armored dingo character.
Yeah, some sort of alien type character.
Yeah, this is a very interesting assortment of heroes.
So, anyways, we have a testimonial from Carlos that we're gonna read.
Maybe he's gonna answer my my wish.
Yeah, so let's open that up.
And he wanted me to read this, or he wanted us to read it.
Yeah, I'll let you read it.
My thoughts on Gaiapolis! It's an exclamation point. All right, Kung Fu Carlito writes, "Yo, Ed and Keyglyph, hope you've had an interesting time journeying to Gaiapolis. I have to say, this ended up being a bit of a challenge, trying to find a game with good enough music and something Ed didn't know or would be easy to guess was tough. I hope I landed on something you guys enjoyed with Gaiapolis. My history with this game doesn't go back that far. My friend has hosted weekly gatherings to play fighting games for around 9 years. It's always a great time. Eventually, he had a custom MAME arcade cab set up in his place to go along with his 3 or 4 CRTs.
Cool.
And with that, we began to drill deep into games we haven't played, as many people do. So many fun, obscure games to find. One day, about 3 years ago, I landed on Gaiapolis, so then a friend and I checked it out. Konami? Check. Beat 'em up? Check. Nice artwork? Check. There was no choice. We had to play through it. So, Gaiapolis is a fantasy-themed beat-em-up with some light RPG elements. The thing I think is cool about the game is it scrolls vertically. It sets itself apart visually, but kind of cramps things gameplay-wise. Other major companies had fantasy-themed beat-em-ups to compete with. Data East's Dark Seal, Capcom's King of Dragons, and Taito's Lightbringer were all fighting for your quarters around this time, so I get the choice. Also, the art design is by Shuzilo Ha, the man behind all the Parodius and Twinbee designs at the time.
Oh, cool.
I love his style. Regarding the composers, Prophet Fukami is the alias for Seiichi Fukami, and Fairy Satoko is the alias for Satoko Miyawaki, who also went by Satoko Minami. Satoko Minami might be a name VGM podcast fans have heard before. She's done great work for Konami. They've also worked together on Parodius and more notably Zexex, which I think has a great soundtrack. I'm actually not sure how to say Zexex.
I always said it's Zezex.
Zezex. Super jazz fusion vibes, which becomes pretty clear in the last 2 arranged tracks I shared with you.
They're arranged.
Open the Wings and Crystal Time. Okay, so that's why they sounded so different.
Yeah.
All in all, I think Gaiapolis sits in the second row of Konami 90s arcade punchers, alongside fun games like Violent Storm, Metamorphic Force, and Bucky O'Hare. If you have a friend that likes these games and is willing to grind through a beat-em-up for the better part of an hour, check it out. Thanks for letting me share, or torture, depending on how you liked this soundtrack. You guys rule.
Aw, thank you, Carlos.
Thanks, Carlos. This was so much fun. Oh my gosh, we were strung along the entire time.
Yeah.
You had an idea, I had an idea, then we switched and we were on the other person's team suddenly. Man, and I feel like it's cool that there was so much going on and we had pieces of it. Like, we had it all on the table. Even though we had everything on the table, I feel like we also had a section that was like, probably this.
Carlos was probably laughing his ass off when we were talking about the arcade machine.
Yeah.
Because we were right on the money, and we were like, no, let's scrap that one. That's silly.
Yeah.
Man, so I would definitely want to play this game. It would be fun to maybe stream this at some point.
Yeah, definitely.
And, we'll get Mame hooked up and do a stream at some point. So, holy cow. So thank you, Carlos. And
thank you for asking to have me on. I had such a great time. Thank you for thinking of me.
Great time both of us had, and great show too. So, as always, I would love to thank all of our Patreon members for making this show possible. At our tourist level, Chris Murray, Cameron Childs, and Shoryu Kenny. Our VG emissaries, Chris Myers, Donovan Orofino, and Ben the Dyad Dishman. Our audio attaché members, Scott McElhone, Cameron Worma, and Carlos. And
Carlos himself.
Scott McElhone recently upgraded his pledge to audio attaché, so he will be giving us a blind listen suggestion very soon. So I'm really looking forward to what he's going to come up with.
Moving on up.
And as always, the patron saint of VGM podcasts, Alex, the messenger. So guys, please check us out on Facebook at facebook.com/group/the VG Embassy. We'd love to hear your comments about the show and what you guys were guessing along with us while we were doing this podcast. I'd love to hear what your thoughts were. And if you've ever played this game before and what you think of the music too, you can join our Discord. You can head over to thevgembassy.com, and at the top of the page there will be a link to our Discord channel, and you can join our chat there. A lot of people hang out there, and we pretty much chat all day long when we get bored at work. And our Patreon page, patreon.com/thevgembassy. You can check out all the tiers. Lots of the equipment that we're using for this show was purchased with Patreon funds, and I'm always looking to upgrade our equipment and upgrade our web presence, and your dollars are not being squandered, that's for sure. They are very, very appreciated.
I can confirm.
She's using some of that equipment right now.
It's true.
And so we will see you guys again in 2 weeks with a non-blind listen, but I'm not sure what the theme is going to be, so it'll be a surprise.
It'll be a blind episode.
A blind episode for me now.
A blind RSS feed entry.
Right, until we figure it out. All right, until next time. And also, of course, Emily, thank you for coming down.
Sure,
You've been here the whole weekend hanging out with me, doing massive amounts of podcasts.
Oh my gosh, so. We've put so many things in the books. It's good.
Yes.
Backlogged for a little while.
Now I feel like I need a weekend off for my weekend.
I know. We did yesterday. We got up at 7 a.m. and this was coming off of a night of recording. Then we recorded a whole podcast for basically the whole day. And then we did a stream at night on my channel, which some of you guys dropped in for, which was so much fun. We were playing Rystar together. Hopefully we'll be doing more 2-player streaming. So, hey guys, if you want to hang out with me while we're streaming, usually it's Thursday nights. at 8:30 p.m. Eastern time. This was sort of a last-minute serendipitous Saturday thing around midnight.
It's because we were hanging out together and we were like, hey, let's do a game. So.
Let's just do this. But yeah, definitely come check out some retro gaming on Thursday nights if you want to chat with your fellow VGM fans, because basically the chat is just filled with VGM fans.
Right.
So, and we love seeing you.
That's Twitch TV/Keyglyph.
Correct. That is correct.
For the direct link. And I'll put a link to that in our show notes as well, so you guys can just click on it and head on over there. Anyways, we will see you, or I will see you at least. I'm not sure who my guest is going to be next episode, depending on the order these shows are coming out in.
I'm going to disappear back into my dark dimension now.
For now. And hopefully you won't get
till I am summoned again.
Right. And we will see you guys next time. Peace out. Thanks for listening.
Bye.
Ninja. Hello.
Sup.
Testing.
Hello.
1, 2, 3. Welcome to the VG Embassy. So much fry.
That's what Japanese ghosts say, apparently.
More fry than Futurama.